Welcome to Karen's Conversations number 40. This week I'm talking to...
No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Oh,
This week I'm going to be interviewing you.
Whoa.
Everybody listens to you talking to other people in these conversations, but how many people know something about you, Karen?
Yeah, very true, very true.
Yeah. So, hello, I'm James Gander, and I'm going to put Karen on the spot this week. So, Karen, would you like to introduce yourself, please? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so organisational change management, rebel with a cause is my tagline. You can see that on LinkedIn. And my background was primarily starting out around 1995. I mean, I was working before that, but that's when I got into IT service management in a big way back in the UK, working for the post office there. And got my certification. And then in 1998, an Australian company called Proactive Services approached me and asked me if I'd like to come over halfway around the world to help them deliver training and consultancy, because at the time there wasn't anyone in Australia with the accreditation you needed to do training. So for 3 months, stayed for 6, stayed for 12, and 21 years later, here I am. So
it's so similar to Liverpool that you just couldn't take yourself away, could you?
That's right. Yeah, no, absolutely loved it. Love Australia, love Melbourne. Yeah, so it's home.
That's awesome. So if you were into service management and doing the training and that kind of thing, what drove you to move towards the organisational change management aspect? Why that?
Yeah, good question, James. When I look back and think about it, a lot of my career, I was, a team leader, a people manager, a trainer, a consultant. And I was doing organisational change management. I was helping people transition through change effectively, but we just didn't call it that. So it wasn't really such a big jump that it sounded like, but it was in 2010 and I was doing some research around service management. And I stumbled on a framework that had been put together by the Network of Business Sustainability in Canada. And it was done by Professor Stephanie Birtles at Simon Fraser University and 2 of her PhD students. And in a nutshell, they asked the question, they've done a systematic review, and they asked the question, how do you embed sustainability into an organisation? And when I looked at what they'd come up with, I was like, this isn't about sustainability per se. This is how do you embed any change into an organisation. So I started out, I asked permission, could I use the framework and do a white paper? And they said, yes, go for it, knock yourself out. And it was a long weekend in Melbourne, and I started to write, and I don't know how many pages in, but I suddenly realised that when I got to 110, 20 pages, that I had a book on my hands. So look, they said, yeah, go for it. I talked to Professor Stephanie Birtles, she was lovely. And so, yeah, book number 1 came out in 2011. So Balanced
Diversity, was it?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Portfolio Approach to Organisational Change. So having written a book on the subject was sort of the kick that put me into that industry, if you like. I started to take interest in what I was writing about and talking about. So, yeah.
And that was a bit of a shake-up for our community as well then, though, wasn't it? Because I remember when that came out, there was a lot of interest from service management practitioners, because a lot of us, in the same way as you, we knew that it was going on and it was needed, but we'd never seen it put in a language that we could actually use. And I don't have it anymore, but I used to have the poster up on my wall, the cartwheel, and it was really good.
Yeah, and in retrospect, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And I did write the book using their framework specifically for the IT service management community, because that was the industry I was in. So I was straddling OCM and IT service management, but the framework applies to any organisation in any industry in any stream. So, in hindsight, I might have written it for the wider organisation, but at the time it was very much focused on service management. So a lot of the examples are very service management orientated in the book. But yeah, like you say, it did have an impact. It was like, and especially because it was a framework and we're talking about IT people,
Or we do like a framework.
Yes, we do like a framework. And yeah, so interesting because the framework is split into, as you know, James, like formal processes and informal processes, and building on current commitments and future commitments. And without going into detail, the top right-hand corner, the top right-hand quadrant, is all about building on current commitments and formal processes. That's the one, that top right one. And that's the one that every IT shop that I've worked with falls into. And the key to the research was that you need to have a balance, which is why balanced diversity, a balanced set of practices from each of the 4 quadrants. Mm-hmm. And IT is always in the top right hand. And that's why, so they go, oh, we've done an audit, we've done a maturity assessment, we've done some training, but that's not embedding change in the organisation. So, yeah. As we know.
So is that where your next book came through, that you realised that people were taking it and sort of thinking they'd done it, but not realise that change was constant?
Yeah, so another reason for rewriting that book will be because my world was very linear, if you like, back in 2010. So you can still use the framework in Agile delivery, faster delivery. It just doesn't reference it in the book, so I want to put that in as well. I mean, the book is, in essence, that book is just 59 activities that you can use to embed change, and you pick and choose, but have balance across the portfolio. Yeah, and I started to, so last year I wrote a white paper called Change is Broken, which a few people didn't like.
That's normally a good sign then.
It was. I poked the bear and the bear growled. So, and that's all I'm going to say. I won't name the organisation or the person. But what I meant by that was that a lot of OCM, organisational change management practitioners, have gone and done their training with whatever organisation, and generally, and I'm generalising, generally they're provided with a linear approach to organisational change. So do all your preparation, and when you've got everything lined up and all your ducks in a row, then we're ready to go. Well, now the project's left the building. The changes happen by the time you do that. So that's where book number 2 came from, Game On, Change is Constant. So how do we cope with constant change that's disruptive, uncertain, ambiguous? What are some of the things organisations and individuals need to do in that environment?
And you do consulting and workshops around that with people. So what challenges do you see are prevalent in organisational change management today?
Yeah. One of the big ones is what I just touched on, is that we're equipping people with the training and education organisation change professionals are getting is all right, because we need to understand how people transition through change. We need to understand the psychology of it, and the things we need to do. But the tools we're giving people, like saying, here's a template for a communication plan. Well, I don't know who we're communicating them to and when, because if I'm in real Agile delivery, we're reprioritising what we're doing every 2 weeks. So I don't know which stakeholder groups are going to need communicating to and engaging, and when the training is going to be needed for a particular cohort. So I'm finding people are really struggling to shoehorn what they've learned into this very difficult world. So I'm working with a lot of the professionals and practitioners to, provide them with how do we actually work in a iterative and fashion and do organisational change at the same cadence as the delivery that's taking place, and how do we do it when we don't know what the end goal perhaps is really going to look like, because things change. So for OCM people, there's even more. So and then there's the assumption, oh well, if it's iterative and fast delivery, we'll just go with the flow and we won't need to do as much preparation as we've done in the past. In fact, you need to do more than you ever did before, because you need to answer all the what if questions. What if they do this? What if they do that? And have everything ready to go at the time.
And that's one of the key drivers for a lot of the more agile approaches to working, is getting the preparation right first.
Yeah, absolutely. and then getting that constant feedback so you can readjust. You've heard me, I always use the analogy of, you know, sailing a boat, and I've never sailed a boat in my life, but you know, I know enough to say you don't just get in and set the compass and go to sleep for a couple of days. You know, you have your end goal, you know where you want to be, but we know things are going to change. The wind's going to change, the weather, well, the weather is the wind, isn't it? Sea conditions, you know, that take you off track. So you tack and you keep adjusting until you get to your end goal. And it's exactly the same for organisational change. We need to be able to continually adjust where we're going and how we're getting there.
And when you're talking to organisations, do you find that some people are more receptive to what you're talking about than others, or
Absolutely.
is it just open arms and everybody goes, "Oh, Karen, you're here to save our lives"?
I wish. Come and save us. It really does vary. A lot of organisations are still giving it lip service. So let me give you an example, and I find this all the time in organisations. I did a presentation a few months ago up in Canberra, and there was a lady in the audience from a very, very large organisation who was very proud and said to me, and quite rightly, and said to me, well, Karen, we've just established a organisational change capability in our organisation. And I said, that's awesome. How many people have you got? And she said, 4. And one of her colleagues there, when I said, and how many people in the organisation? I can't remember the number, but, you know, 40,000 or whatever it might be. And I said, there's your problem. There's your problem. Yeah. And so many organisations say, yes, we've got a competency. And there's 1 or 2 people in it who are expected to cope with the amount of change across the whole of the organisation. And yeah, that's not going to happen. So some organisations, the penny sort of dropped. There's an organisation here in Melbourne, government organisation, who have adopted the model that I talk about: managers, coaches, and players. So this is in the second book. So I use the soccer analogy, being from Liverpool, as you mentioned. So that's the one. Change, game on, change is constant. So in a nutshell, I say, you know, you think of the players on any team. Players, every game they play is different. The ground, the location, the state of the pitch, the supporters, the weather, the opposition, the position they play in, the tactics, everything changes. And they don't stand there and resist change. They say, game on, and they're resilient in the face of it. And that's where we need our workforce to be. So the 2 roles we need are managers, which are our change management professionals. There are 2 or 3 people in the organisation. Yeah. Step back and stop doing and start strategizing and saying, how do we build a resilient workforce? And then the coaches are what people often call the change champions, or the change network, or change agents. And it's more than just asking people to put their hand up and be a change champion. We need to equip them and train them. So this organisation I'm talking about have identified, I think, about 70 change agents across the organisation, and have invested a lot of money in training them to do what the organisational change management practitioners were doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and with great success, because the 2 or 3 people in the change management office can't do it all, so they maintain to stay in that network.
And the people out there that are helping to drive the change, as you say, they need to be equipped with the skills, because even in organisations, from what I've seen working within the service management and IT operations area, so even in organisations where they are more open to continual change, you're always going to get some individuals who have got very good donkey feet. They will dig them in, and they don't want to change their way of being or thinking or doing, or even where they're sitting sometimes. Yeah, I've sat at this window for 15 years and I'm not giving it over anybody. It's a prize spot. Yeah. So if they don't have the training and the skills to be able to cope with those individuals, the whole thing could get derailed.
Absolutely. And you know, often those individuals, I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. You need to try and get them on board if you can, and you train people to have the conversations. and be able to uncover what it is that's really troubling them. You know, is it that it's the best view in the room, or is it something else, that they've actually got a bigger cupboard under the desk than anyone else, and they have all their shoes for the week in it or whatever. And it's a true, that's a true story someone was telling me about changing to a activity-based working, and this one woman was the donkey feet, stuck in, not doing it, not moving, and that was the reason why, because she had all her work shoes in this cupboard. So all they needed to do was find her a bigger cupboard, and she was happy. You know, so it's finding, might not be as simple as that, but finding what it is that's you know, stopping them from changing, because often it's just having that conversation. You know, we make assumptions that, you know, it's the view that they want and they're stuck in their ways because they've been there for 15 years. Might be the case, might not be the case. We need to take the time to find out. But there's a point at which you don't invest all your time. It sounds like a terrible thing to say, but how much time are you investing in that one person to get on board at the detriment of everybody else you need to bring on the journey? So for the OCM professional, it's a balancing act to say there's some point where you're going to go, I'm not going to be able to make a difference. And that's when you get to the saying, which I hate saying it, but you know, if you can't change the people, change the people.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down to that, but you have to have done as much as you can before that.
Yeah, you've got to have given everybody the opportunity first, because there are a multitude of reasons why somebody is resistant to change, and until you've, whether it's in the workforce or anywhere else, it's, we all know what we're trying to say, or what I'm trying to say.
Well, I always say people, and again, it's a generalization, people generally don't resist change if you do it with them. When you do it to them, because they don't understand the wherefore, the why, the what's in it for me, how is it going to impact me. So if you're about to do something to me and I don't know what it means or why we're doing it, I'll resist it. If you've told me the reason and it's, you know, justified for the success of the organisation, success of my team, and it has, you know, there's benefits to me, bring it on. You know?
And that's one of the first things I ever say in a consulting engagement when we've got to make some changes is, you know, I'm here to do this with you, not to you. Because you do get resistance when they think, oh God, a consultant's coming in to make us all work differently. Yeah. So going back to what you were saying earlier about the, you know, very large organisation, say 40,000 people and 4 change managers or change roles within the capability. Do you think that the top level don't understand fully the benefits of OCM, or is it something different? Is it bigger?
I think there is, well, look, I think there's an understanding, let me put it this way. I was talking to someone this morning about this. You know, I think if you said organisational change management to them, they generally get it. They know what the competency and the capability is. But the focus always goes on the technology or the process. And we're seeing that now, let's say, with digital transformation. Organisation, we need to be digital. Let's do it. Well, it's not a project, you know, it's a journey of continual improvement to automate, digitize, whatever you can as you go. It's not something you do, but they're still talking about it as if it's, you know, and like, oh, tomorrow we need to do Agile. No, it's continual improvement. It's not new. It's plan, do, check, act. It's Deming stuff, you know. So they're still focusing on the process or a methodology and not taking, to me, enough account of the people side of that change. And therefore, change doesn't get embedded as it should, and certainly doesn't come business as usual as soon as it should. And that's why it's so important, because when you look at things like the model that most of the organisational change frameworks have been based on, which is a series of steps assigned to a psychologist, German-American psychologist, Kurt Lewin, who said unfreeze, transition, change, refreeze. Now, he never said it, but everything's been based on that. The idea of being, when you refreeze, there's a period of stability. Well, there isn't anymore, so it's continually moving. So we have to have that recognition that, you know, disruption, becoming more agile, whatever it is the organisation's doing, moving towards a DevOps way of working, is a new way of working and thinking, and it needs people as part of it. And we need to have recognise that there isn't really a point where we can sit back and go, because the next one's coming right behind us.
Yeah, and some organisations can get it very wrong. I mean, there was a large organisation over here in New Zealand who said, we're going agile, so everybody reapply for your jobs. And again, I'm paraphrasing, I don't think it was quite put in those words, but that was the sentiment. And to me, that is getting it very wrong.
Yeah.
You're not building the workforce that you want. You're potentially building the workforce that you end up with.
Yeah, exactly the same things happened here. Banking is a prime culprit here of that. Yeah, we are doing agile. Well, firstly, guys, it's not a noun.
It's a verb. We're agiling.
Yeah, it's not a noun. But yeah, it's saying like we're doing it with no sort of reason why. I mean, we know the benefits of it, but you need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're working with clients, what are the best things that you see and get out of those engagements?
Just being able to make a difference and seeing the difference, seeing people with the aha moment. I was talking to someone today about, and one thing we need to do when change is constant is get or managers and leaders, I'll mix the words up, to get out of the way and let people get on with the job. Because if we've got the real hierarchy with bureaucracy in place, the organisation is just going to die because it's too slow. Yeah, it's a dinosaur. And you say that to some managers or leaders, right? You've got to let go. You've got to let people, you know, delegate, empower, whatever words. And it's like the rabbits in the headlights, you know, oh my God, it's going to be chaos. Well, no, it's not, because we give people parameters we need to operate. So working with people like that, say, okay, let's work with you and your team, because the team need to realise that the manager's about to change style of management, and they don't just think, oh, they've been knocked on the head or something. So we work with the team and the manager of the leader and say, right, let's just look at one thing you're trying to do, one little project, whatever it might be. We'll give it to John. John is given a delivery date and an outcome to achieve. The leader makes sure John knows that he's there to, or she's there to support them, to get obstacles out of the way, and then step back and let go. And magic happens, because all of a sudden the leader isn't micromanaging. They're freeing all that time up that they didn't have before. John's suddenly really engaged and motivated because he's doing stuff his way and having a go. And the results are often better than they ever would be.
Yeah.
So it's like making those little changes and baby steps. Organisations get challenges and they look at them like this, and it's like, break it down. You know, no one climbs Everest in one go. We have, you know, camps and plateaus that we work our way up. And, you know, making changes to behavioural changes or whatever it might be, we need to do it in bite-sized pieces. So hand-holding organisations and leadership and teams through that, I get a great satisfaction from.
It's good, this life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, being able to help people, and if they so wish, paying you for it.
That's always the bonus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pay people you love.
That's awesome. Now, I've seen on social media, people keep talking about this thing called good guidance that you're part of.
Yes.
Pray tell, what is it?
So, good guidance is awesome. It comprises the Fantastic Five.
Is that like the famous five?
Famous Five, yes. Enid Blyton's Famous Five. We need a dog, don't we? So, so your initiative, James, brilliant initiative, was to get a group of us together who, I guess, a bit like a collaboration or a consortium, an umbrella title of Good Guidance. We're still all our independent consultants running our own businesses, but pulling us together so we can talk as a collective of skills, capabilities and experience to a particular client. So, for example, if you were going in to help an organisation with operational matters and they needed organisational change, and you can say, yeah, we've got Karen if they needed knowledge management, we've got April Allen if they need more like lean processing, business processes, we've got Rob, and if it's a technical slant to that, we've got Paul as well. So it's a real melting pot, if you like, of skills. So we're, a lot of us have worked together. You and I have worked together over here in Victoria. I know you're working with April. So yeah, it's sharing and caring.
That's what it's all about. Collaboration.
Absolutely. It's really good stuff.
That's great. Well, I do apologise for interrupting normal transmissions. But thank you very much for your time, Karen.
Thanks, James. Thanks.
And how can people get hold of you if they find this without being on your website?
LinkedIn profile, Karen Ferris. You'll know it's me because it's a Organisational Change Management Rebel. And this broadcast will go on to karenferris.com, and any other information you want about my programs or what I do, or read my blogs, karenferris.com.
Awesome. I can highly recommend you.
Thanks, James. Talk to you soon.
No, thank you. See you later.